gonna be a part of Normaya's. All Normaya's. Watch. Rockman. There's 3 of us. Yo guys, what's up?
Here goes.
Hey everybody, before we get started, I just wanted to say, if you enjoy our content and want to stay up to date with our videos, hit the subscribe button. It really helps the channel. Thanks. So, on to the video.
Hello and welcome back to my channel, Random Drop. And this week, I got to play the Granblue Fantasy Relink demo. It was announced to be released on January 12th. In Japan, they had a large stream, kind of showing off the game some more, and they announced the demo releasing for PS4 and PS5. Sadly, at this rate, we have not seen the PC version yet. I'm hoping that that version is really good, but hey, we still haven't seen that version yet, so I would hold off, honestly, and kind of just wait for really what the reports are on release, because you never know with some PC ports, especially if they're not showing it off at the moment. I would be a little bit hesitant. We did get to play the PS4 and PS5 version. I had to make a New Zealand PSN account so I could play it like 12 hours earlier or something like that, and streamed it a little bit. You can find that stream in the archives in our YouTube channel if you want to watch me play for about 2 or so hours going through the demo, and I give some of my thoughts at the end, but this is going to be more of a summary and whole of what I played and what I'm feeling so far on this game, right? So, Granblue Fantasy Relink. It's a very weird thing, right? This game, because it is massively popular in Japan, but it never really took off in the West because we didn't get the gacha game out here, right? There are many Westerners who found a way to play it eventually, and I think there's an official Western version now, but I think only through web browser, if I'm mistaken. Originally, when the game came out, it kind of sprung up a lot of interest initially because Nobuo Uematsu and I believe one of the Final Fantasy artists were working on it as well. If you look at any of the art in this game and the hand-drawn art, it's incredibly beautiful. Like it's so goddamn gorgeous, and they kind of try to translate that over to the actual gameplay and the art style of the game in general. But man, those 2D still images are very, very nice looking. The demo itself, it is a 3-part demo. One is a tutorial. It's a basic tutorial system of, hey, have you ever played an action game ever in your freaking life? It teaches you a couple of the intricate systems, but for the most part, it is a basic, like, this is how you attack, this is how you move, this is how you dodge, and this is how you use abilities. It's something that most people would be able to intuit if you've played any action game before, especially ones that use a, I don't know what, cross hotbar system. Basically when you hold down a button and it gives you face buttons to do different abilities, right? So you hold R2 down so you can do a bunch of different skills compared to the regular skills on the face button. So the tutorial is, it's kind of nothing, right? It's just Gran on the boat. You beat the shit out of a dummy, and then it's like, all right, go try out the rest of the game. So the first part I tried out was the story missions, right? The main story quest. Like, hey, this is a demo of what the main story is going to be like. It plays like structurally, it feels very much like a Tales game in that sort, right? You're landing in an area, talking to NPCs, they're giving you a little bit of backstory of what's going on, and then you're there to resolve the problem, basically, right? The characters banter, there's full blown out cutscenes that look very beautiful, but then there's the standing and talking cutscenes that you're gonna see through most of the game as they're talking to NPCs and you're getting quests, right? And filling out the world. You have a couple dialogue choices, but the dialogue choices basically are the same. You sadly can't play as Jita in this demo. Yeah, you have to play as Gran, but for the most part they are just called the captain. They're a blank slate for you to play. The main story mission in itself, it is a very like, hey, the goblins are attacking the town, go through parts of the town beating these goblins up and saving the people of the town. I imagine it's a very early mission in the game. I think I was level 10 doing it. Now looking at the footage now, it looks like it's level 3, so it might be the very first mission in the game. So it's hard to tell exactly how this game is going to be structured, but it is, hey, here's some goblin enemies, they're fodder. Oh, hey, here's some more tougher goblin enemies, they have shields. Use some defenses, use some abilities that'll weaken defenses. Oh, hey, here's a boss enemy. It's like this is how kind of bosses are going to be structured. They have enraged modes and have AoE markers on the ground, right? So it takes you a quick rundown of like how all the missions are going to be structured in this game overall. I had an overall good time. Sadly, you can't switch characters on the fly, so you are very much stuck as Gran. You can only switch characters in the mission mode. You select who the party leader is, right? So you can make I don't know, Zeta, your leader, and you play as her during the mission, but you can't switch mid-mission, which I imagine it's a choice for the multiplayer mode of the game. But for the single player part, it would have been really fun to be swapping between everyone and doing it would have made the game incredibly complicated, because as I'll get into it, one character is very complicated in itself, so I imagine switching between 4 is a bit much. But the characters all have their own gear and progression and equipment systems, so of course you want to, just like a standard JRPG, you're going to want to gather those things and equip your party out for the mission, right? And equip them out well, right? And I imagine do side quests to get this weapon for this one character you like. So, you know, it is very much structured in that way in terms of the menus. I know there's more systems in the game that aren't really shown in the demo, and there's a lot more depth in terms of that stuff. But the very basic stuff is, here's the equipment, and here's some sigils, which are basically like rune slots. And you can put 3 of them. Hey, you can put attack power or critical strike power or more health, or whenever you get knocked out, you get back up once. I imagine these are the things you're gonna be looking for throughout the game to min-max your character as much as possible. So quick thoughts of the story mission is, I mean, it's the first story mission of the game. It's hard to tell. Overall, the game runs incredibly smooth, and it's very, very, very pretty. But it was it is a hallway, right? I think that playing this demo, I know the action combat is going to be fine and great and probably even spectacular. All the characters play beautifully. I had so much fun trying everyone out. But my main concern is the JRPG story part of this game. The multiplayer is probably going to be great. And the questing system and the big boss fights are going to probably be incredible. But I think the structure of this game, I think people are thinking they're going into a like Tales-like world, right? Where you're like in an explore and do missions and side quests and go to different villages. It seems like how this demo is showing it off and the main story quest, and hopefully I'm wrong. I would love to be wrong. It seems like it's not going to be that way, and it's going to be a lot more linear. Like you're just going through a main story progression, and you start the mission at the village, and the next portion of that story will start, and then it will take you to the next part of the game, right? And that's fine, right? But basically what I'm saying is that there's not gonna be like these massive interconnected zones where like, oh, I need to get to town A, but our town needs to get to town B or something like that, or we need to find the goblin camp that's over there, so we're gonna go through this cavernous area. And you know how like JRPGs are structured, right? There's always like these little mini dungeons or big land areas you go through. But it seems like this game is not going to have any of that, and it's going to be mostly through the mission structure and the gameplay that you will be traveling through these lands, but it's going to play like an action game, like Final Fantasy 16, but it doesn't have the zone areas, right? So it's going to be like in Final Fantasy 16 where you have the big act missions where big set pieces and you're playing through it and story is happening, then you wrap that up, then you're in the next part of the game, right? But it's not like you have like this area that you can explore. Again, that is just my first impressions from playing the demo. It just doesn't seem like the game is structured that way, but hey, maybe I'm wrong. And it's not like that's a bad thing. It seems like this game doesn't really need it. And for what's been reported, that the game is only like really 20 hours long, so it is probably very focused. It is you're going through mission to mission and playing the story of this game. And where the game gets very expansive is actually the quest system and the mission system. But this is more akin to Monster Hunter or something like that, right? Where you're doing a mission, you're trying to S rank it, and you're trying to find certain bosses and enemies to collect loot and items. So that's my impressions with the story so far. Again, it is only very much one mission, and it feels like pretty structurally limited. But again, it's not a deal breaker. But I would have loved to see a Granblue Fantasy like explore like at least 4 large zones or something like that in this really beautiful world. But again, we're probably going to do that, but it's going to be in mission structure, right? Next is the mission or the quest system, right? They give you 3 different missions to do. One is you just fight a bunch of wave of goblins. There's not much to it. It's very much the same enemies you fought at the beginning of the game. You're not really exploring or moving in an area. It's basically just the glorified arena where you defeat the goblins, and then that's it, right? And then the 2 other parts are boss fights, all again based in large arenas, which the boss fights were really fun and incredible. They weren't crazy hard or anything like that, but they are demo boss fights. Are obviously they're very early in the game, but they had enough going on, right? They had AoE markers and the monsters doing like big charge attacking abilities. In the third boss fight where you're fighting like the big stone guy, he does a lot more damage, so you very much do have to heal up your party members and have a support. I had one group that had 3 Normayas in it, and we beat it eventually, right? But it was really scary that like one hit and like, oh, it's like, oh shit, no one can heal. So we had to use like our own healing items a lot more. But then I played a more balanced group where I was playing Catalina. I think one guy was playing Gran, and the fact that we could AoE heal our group and buff them was really, really useful. The demo boss fights were cool, and I played them all multiplayer. I tried out different characters. My favorites are probably Catalina, Siegfried, and Rykard, the guy with the shooty guns. He's just blasting. He plays like an engineer in Final Fantasy 14, where he's just like blasting, and then you get a heat gauge. Once that heat gauge is full, you start doing big attacks until you empty that gauge and go back in again. I also played as Io, who is a caster who plays like Aerith in 7, where she could put a rune down on the ground and her charge attacks charge much faster, so you can output more damage while you're standing in this rune. And then she has like fire spells and other spells as well, but it was really interesting to see that dynamic, that rune, which the rune thing is a thing in RPGs, right? I mean, WoW had the magic circle for mages. 14 has the ley lines for black mages. It is a very much a mage archetype thing of like, hey, stand in this spot and you will do big damage. And it was fun to see Io do that in the game. I had fun playing her. The second boss dies way faster because I think it's level 10 and everyone else is level 10, compared to the third boss who's level 20 and everyone else is level 10 still. But yeah, every character I tried was pretty interesting. There's some that I feel like I would probably need a target dummy to like figure out, like Zeta, but she has some jump attacks that have specific timing, I believe, and it was hard to like do that in the middle of a big boss battle and figure it out, right? Same thing with Siegfried. I was able to figure out a lot of his timing just playing, but I would love a spot just to sit down and like, okay, hey, I need to figure this out. What exactly is the timing? So wasn't guessing. Again, I only played him once, but I was doing a lot of guesswork playing him, but he was really fun. But as I said, all of these things were all in big arenas. My hope is there's more variety in the mission structures, right? Like, hey, maybe when you're more going through a dungeon and it's a gauntlet of enemies that you're exploring through, rather than, again, the fact they gave us 3 circle arena missions is a little disheartening. My hope is there are actual like dungeons they built for the game, where like challenge, I mean, they would be gauntlets, right, in this type of game where you're moving through an area of the game and explore and see more of the game, right? I don't want it to be just a bunch of circle arenas. Make it a lot more, my hope, right, and when I was coming into this game, is that it was more like PSO 2, where you're going through an environment and beating enemies, collecting stuff, and then eventually hit the boss at the end of that environment, right? But it seems a lot more menu based in this game for quick repeat play, which it probably gets that from the gacha game, and it's very much designed for you to like repeat these missions quickly and try to S rank them, rather than make like this large sprawling randomly generated dungeon or something like that, right? But yeah, overall I'm very impressed with it. I very much like the game overall. I can't wait to try it out when it comes out fully. I'm glad they give you like a good chunk of characters to try out, because each one is very unique and all have very different play styles and different moves and attributes, and just like playing a 2-hour demo it's incredibly difficult to like figure out what they all do. I did a sample test of like a good chunk of characters, and it's very much like, okay, hey, each one of these characters is a freaking fighting game character. They have mechanics upon mechanics on themselves, and that's not even including the gear systems and whatever stat systems are in the game and the sigil system on top of it, right? Even the base character themselves are complicated. So I imagine at the end game of this game, when you're actually at the end and trying to grind out loot and items, there's gonna be some crazy builds out there and stuff like that. So that will be really exciting to see. Again, playing through this, it's very easy to see that the multiplayer component and all that, and the actual combat is going to be pretty damn good. There's no doubt about it. And in terms of like the systems and building your characters are going to be pretty great as well. It is just the JRPG part of it, right? The progressing through the story of Granblue Fantasy And a lot of this is gonna be the first time for a lot of people. It's gonna be my first time because I mean I watched the anime, but it didn't freaking finish. So I saw half of that arc, and here's a new arc I could get to go on. But let's see if it has any resonance, right? It looks like it's gonna be epic in terms of like big moments, right? You can see a lot of the boss fights that they're like advertising and stuff, but maybe it is just a series of big moments and there's like no in between. Like I want to get to know the characters and things like that, right? Like JRPG stuff, which it's very possible we don't get that, but hey, hope I'm wrong. Granblue Fantasy Relink is coming out February 1st. I believe if you pre-order on PlayStation, you can get a couple days early, and I believe I'm probably going to do that as well, just so I have a little bit of gap between this and Persona 3. And I can take some time and get into the multiplayer hopefully and see what the game's about at the end of the day, right? Because it sounds like a large part of this game is going to be about the end game and the character building. I want to see more of that. So hey, did you play the demo? What do you think? Let me know down below. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next random drop video. Peace.
Ho.